Please welcome 17-year-old Talia Leman.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I want to thank the Jewish Federation of North America for inviting me to be here with you all. I think what I have in common with a lot of these people that have spoke is this lack of Jewishness in being Jewish. And it's not often that I get to speak before a Jewish audience, which makes this a very special privilege for me to have. I come from a relatively small town in Iowa where there are very few Jews. And when I was little, what are you all laughing at? Oh, okay. But when I was little, I thought the whole world was Jewish simply because we were. So my parents, having realized this, informed me the night before my first day of kindergarten that not only was the whole world not Jewish, but also that no one in my school was Jewish except for me. Looking back, I suppose they didn't want me to be surprised to find out that I was different. Except I didn't take it that way. I took it as my opportunity to surprise everyone that I was Jewish. I could hardly wait. So I went through my parents' drawers and I pulled out every kippah that I could find in every color, and I matched them up with my outfits for the first week of school. So what began as a proclamation quickly turned into my fashion statement. Couldn't wait to get up the next morning. And my success was astounding. By the end of the first day of school, I was known by all 600 kids as the Jewish girl in kindergarten. My parents didn't have to worry about me feeling different because I took care of that right away. So over the years, I've learned that we're all different in one way or another. And sometimes we're afraid of other people finding out how, but I think that once they do, it's really a good thing. And you don't have to hide anymore because you can just be yourself. Which makes it easier for me to admit to you all today that I have a lot more to learn from most of you than any of you could ever learn from me. And so then I suppose that any wisdom that I do have to offer comes in more ways from what I don't know than from what I do know. And so it's from that place of both knowledge and ignorance that I'm going to present to you my story today. And that's the story of what I'm coming to understand about the world, about the power of really anyone. So it all started when I was 4 years old. Got to start somewhere, right? And I opened up a shoe store in my grandparents' home. And they were really happy, good job, you're trying to make a living, So I took all 37 pairs of my grandmother's shoes, and I placed one of each pair on the coffee table, and then I hid the other pair somewhere else where nobody could find it. So if my grandmother wanted to leave the house for any reason, a sale was imminent. It wasn't long before I had ideas about how to expand my business, and that's when I started selling them back their own groceries as well. But being 4 didn't deem me cute enough from what happened next. They shut me down, which is another reason I had to come to Las Vegas. But despite being shut down, I still gained something from that experience, and I discovered my inner business child. So 6 years later, when Hurricane Katrina hit the Gulf Coast, I had a plan. I made the decision that with Halloween just around the corner, I was going to take advantage of that captive audience and trick-or-treat for coins instead of candy that Halloween, and then give that money that I raised to hurricane relief. I called my business TLC. It was an acronym for Trick-or-Treat for the Levee Catastrophe, except for when it didn't. Sometimes it stood for Trick-or-Treat for Loose Change, or Trick-or-Treat for Loads of Cash. I took a very flexible approach to my branding. I also determined that I would be the CEO of this effort, a title that I took to mean Chief Executive Optimist. So dutiful to my title, I set an early goal of raising $1 million. By all accounts, things were coming along. I had a nice big trick-or-treat bag, and I chose a neighborhood where the houses were really, really close together. Then, my 6-year-old brother got wind of what I was up to, and he came up to me, clearly very upset, and said, "I'm opposed to what you're doing. I'd rather trick-or-treat for pirate relief." Those were his exact words. It was very unexpected. We didn't know what to do with it, but we decided to make room for it anyway. So I offered him a title too. He became our official CON, Chief Operating Nemesis. We put him on our website in his favorite Darth Vader costume, and he was thrilled. And then something happened that really turned my life around forever. The Today Show happened to be visiting our little website and saw his photo and then invited us onto their program, CEO versus CON. So one day later, I was fielding reports from kids across the USA, tracking their donations on a map with pushpins. And then about a week later, a local grocery chain offered to print 8.5 million trick-or-treat bags to be given out with my message on them in 226 stores and in 13 states. Our governor held a press conference. And then UNICEF invited me to do some spots on CNN and NPR, so I was back in business. But when it came time to draw our efforts to a close, I knew that we'd raised a lot of money. But it wasn't $1 million. It wasn't $500,000. It was, in fact, $10 million. Kids across the USA ranked in their giving power with the top 5 US corporations, right up there with Walmart, Exxon, and Amoco. And through all of this, I became a witness to the greatness in others that I never could have foreseen. And I never could have planned that. It really just happened, which is a scary realization, because if greatness happens by accident, if it happens by surprise, if it's not this carefully orchestrated sequence of events, then how are we supposed to just happen upon it? So how can we do something greater than we know how to do and become something greater than we know how to be? Well, I wasn't sure. But what I was sure of was that someone had to harness that youth power for the other disasters that the world faces. And so that's why I started the organization that I have now called RandomKid. It's a nonprofit that leverages the power of kids worldwide to drive an economy of positive change and to solve real-world problems. I figured that if kids can raise $10 million for hurricane relief, that we could do anything. So today, 7 years later, RandomKid has now unified the efforts of 12 million kids on 20 countries. And together, we've placed safe water wells on 4 continents. We've built and refurbished schools both overseas and on our Gulf Coast. We're providing wind energy to once parched gardens. And together, youth are truly changing the world. And I noticed this through my nonprofit work, that for every dollar that RandomKid invests in the launch of a youth's idea to better the world, the youth will turn that investment into a 200 to 1,000% return for their cause. And so I call this phenomenon the big return. Creative. So in the fall of 2011, we brought the idea of the big return to St. Louis, Missouri, just as a pilot. Yeah, St. Louis, Missouri! Okay. To pilot this on a larger scale. Do you guys know about the big return? Collective yes, collective no? No? Okay. I'll tell you. Okay. So we invited local businesses to leverage their charitable dollars by investing them in youth social projects. So St. Louis businesses stepped forward, along with their city government, and about 247 youth. For our part, we helped the youth to develop their ideas, and we gave them $6,800. 4 months later, I returned to St. Louis, and this is what happened in this short amount of time. Those 247 youth rallied another 25,000 youth. They brought back $72,000, and impacted the lives of another 100,000 people. The return, over 900%. But the return didn't end there. The students also learned about leadership and teamwork and problem solving and empathy, the stuff that this Tikkun Olam is all about. So we're now taking this initiative across the USA, and my plan is 50 states in 5 years. All right, so now you have my story, and you know what I'll be doing for the next 5 years. But here's the part that I treasure most. Despite all of that success and all those plans, do you know what the most common question that people ask me is? It's why I decided to call it RandomKid. And it turns out that that's actually a very important question. I tell them, quite simply, it's because I am a random kid. I tell them it's because if I see myself as anything more than a random kid, then how will those I seek to empower see the potential that they have? I tell them it's because when we believe in the power that we each have, we have the greatest power of all. But what I don't tell them is this, that RandomKid's success did not happen because of my fancy shoe store, my ambitious Katrina goals, or even my lofty title. RandomKid's success happened because, did you catch it? My little brother. RandomKid's success happened because I made room for him, because I made room for Darth Vader. It was the one step that I took that seemed to have nothing to do with my success, and it became the very thing that made me successful. So how do we do greater than we know how to do and become something greater than we know how to be? I now know the answer. It happens when we make room for the plan that we didn't have, when we are free enough and brave enough to take a step sideways to a place where unexpected things might happen. And the reason that is because the great miracles of life, by definition, can only appear in those unexpected places. So by making room for the unexpected, for passions that don't make sense, for playfulness that has no purpose, for ideas that are not your own, for people who are not like you, for a path that you did not define, for a dream you didn't dream, for a future that you didn't imagine, you can sometimes follow your heart to a larger destiny, be captured by a grander idea, dream that impossible dream, realize a power that you never knew, choose a path that raises you higher, believe yourself into a new way of being, and create a future defined by miracles and marked with a greatness that you never thought possible. We don't have to know how. We can just head that direction and get there. Thank you.